What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 podcast, news award winner, and 2018 innovation award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And also, once a month, I host the only online show for dads and fathers in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. And it's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And one more thing I'll slip in there. I'm also the board chair for an organization called the Global Food and Drink Initiative. It is based in the US, even though I'm in Canada, in Toronto. It's a multimedia not-for-profit that is dedicated to exposing and sharing Blacks in food, wine, and travel in the diaspora. But not Dr. Vibe showing tonight. We're doing Man Listen. So I don't do this alone. So I'm going to bring on my posse with me. I got Jeff A.D. Martin and Coach Danny Stone. What is up, gentlemen?
Yo. What's good? Mic check. What's good?
Like when the music was going, you guys can't see it, but like Jeff Martin was doing his mama said, knock you out.
Oh, you got to get ready. You know what I'm saying? We have a great conversation and just put it out there.
There we go. There we go. Nice stuff. So for people who don't know, and for people who do know, Man Listen is a live bi-weekly online show hosted by us three, and we give our perspective on various hot topics and what's happening in the world. Each episode we break down hot topics or a burning topic that we feel is relevant to discuss and ask our audience, our community, to participate with their questions and comments. At the end, we ask each other, what's our takeaway from this episode for us and us to share with you. So interesting that it's February. I wonder what happens in February each year.
What happens?
You know,
birthday. It's my birthday.
Yes, that's right.
You guys already know. You already know. Come on. It's my birthday in February. That's what happens.
Yeah, that's
true,
what we discuss. That's what we discuss every month. Every February. Danny's birthday. But that's number one. And then number two is this thing called Black History Month.
Yes, sir.
And we were having a conversation on Sunday, our production meeting, saying, what approach are we going to take with this? Because I'm going to speak for myself. I get the same old. And I think it was Jeff saying, well, why don't we talk about if Black History Month's even necessary? And I go, I like that. So before we dive into it, just want to do a check-in. How's life going with you, Jeff? What's been going on?
Man, I'm super blessed. You know, things are going well. I've been speaking at a lot of different engagements, which has been great. Of course, virtually. All of us, of course, are still fighting this whole COVID piece, but we are pushing through. We are getting through, which is great. Family's good. Life is good. I can't complain, man. God is good.
Excellent. Coach Stone?
Blessed, man. Blessed. Working with some coaching clients. The podcast is going well. The Grind and Gratitude Show. Got some really interesting guests. Yeah, man. Yeah, got some really interesting guests coming up. So I'm really excited about that. And, you know, just continuing to work with Zero Gun Violence Movement, doing some stuff in the streets.
By the way, do you guys had something real special with Zero Gun Violence Movement happen? Are you just take a second to share with that? Because I think it's amazing what happened. So if you want to share with our audience.
Sure. So I volunteer with a group called Zero Gun Violence Movement, a group that is dedicated to ending gun violence and creating safe communities here in Toronto, Canada. And we do a lot of mentorship. We work with government agencies. We go and speak at universities. We do a lot of things. And the founder of Zero Gun Violence Movement, Louis March, has been a community activist for over 30 years. And so he got a call about 2 weeks ago from a restaurant chain called a Caribbean restaurant chain called Sunrise. And they reached out to us, and we went and had a meeting with them, and they want to partner with Zero Gun Violence Movement. And that partnership looks like, money coming our way. So they started with $10,000 donation.
Wow.
We have some other things involved. They want to start funding Black businesses. So young Black entrepreneurs will be able to pitch to them. And if they accept the pitch, they will actually fund their business. So
love it.
There's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
We're really happy about this partnership. And the great thing is the money goes back into the communities that we're serving, right? So that's why we're so excited about the partnership.
Man, it isn't government funded? My gosh.
No, it's not.
Well, we'll leave that for another conversation.
Exactly.
Big congratulations to Zero Gun Violence, and especially to Louis, who has been a tireless, passionate ally for the Black Toronto community for many years. And Louis is still learning, because Louis is still going to school, folks.
That's right. That's
Louis,
right.
Louis is not a young man. Well, I think he's young, but for a lot of people say he is still learning. So he is being the tip of the spear for many of us. So huge props to Zero Gun Violence movement. And thanks for everyone who's watching this live. And if you're going to watch on the replay or listen to it on the replay, much appreciated. If you're watching it live, please give us your comments. We'll answer them to the best of our ability during this conversation. So I'm going on Jeff now. Why did you bring up this question if we still need Black History Month in 2021?
Well, I heard a celebrity say that a couple years ago, and I heard him say that we don't need Black History Month anymore. And, when I really sat and thought about it, initially I was like, what is this guy talking about? Like, no, we need this stuff. But I understood what he was saying. And the reason why he was saying we should get to a point where we don't need Black History Month is because we need to have our history spoken about all the time. Our history needs to be included in our history books. There was a video that came out not too long ago, right here in the province of Ontario, where there is a school accredited book for the grade 8 students. It's a history book. And out of the 255 pages, I believe it was, there was 15 pages within this entire text that had something that had to do with Black history. And I'm talking about, 15 pages, but it's not like it was 15 full pages. It mentions, Black history in a certain portion of within the book. And so the majority of the book did not speak about Black history. When we get to the point where our history, Black history, is considered everyone's history, just like Asian history, women's history, when it's considered all of our history and it's included fairly within our history books, when it's talked about fairly within society, then we can get to the point where we can say we don't need Black History Month anymore. Why? Because it's already spoken about everywhere. And we know we're so far from there. I don't know if we'll ever get there. Definitely not in my lifetime. So I do see the relevance of having a Black History Month, but I remind people that Black History Month is not a time for Black people to celebrate. It's not a time for Asian Heritage Month. It's not a time for Asian people to celebrate. It's a time for everybody to learn about that culture, learn about the differences, learn about the foods, learn about where they've come from and how they were able to help to build this country up into what it is today. And so, yeah, Black History Month right now, I think it's necessary, but it would really be nice to get to the point where we don't need to have the month because we're celebrated like everybody else all year round.
Coach Stone?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, we learn more about Scottish history and Irish history than we do Black history. And we settled for a month, many years ago, but we haven't evolved to say we want more. It's like, I don't know what happened. Like we even with civil rights, like that's a whole other thing, but it's like we ask for something, we don't get it. And then we just settle with it forever. Black History Month, we should have told them we wanted Black history, throughout the years ago, right? Like this is 2021. Why are we still excited that we have Black History Month when Jeff just told you an example of a few pages in a history book? And so we have to be the ones as society and community. We can't allow the education system to choose what our kids learn. We have to push it, right? We have to push it and say, this is what we want the textbooks to look like. And then the other thing is, Black history doesn't start as slavery. Your history doesn't start as you being a slave. Slavery means that you've been taken and enslaved. And so what they do put in the books, it's like, why are we learning that we were slaves? Like the very first thing a young child learns about Black history is that you were a slave. Not that you were prosperous and living on this land and growing your own fruits and vegetables and maybe even bartering things. It's like you started as a slave, which is impossible. And so if we don't start to push back, like Jeff said, why would anything change?
So, and it's because I look at this conversation, why are we continuing allowing this to happen? Like, we're happy with we haven't got a 40 acres and a mule. We don't even got a mule, right? We continuously are happy with what we've got. And Coach Stone and myself, we know a gentleman named Mario Armstrong, and his main hashtag is never settle. And I'm disappointed that we I don't like using the community as an environment, we're settling. And when we're settling, we're actually falling behind. I don't know if that's right to say or not, but I think we're falling behind.
But people have a slave mentality. If you look at every great leader, look at Malcolm X, look at Martin Luther King, look at Mandela, there was always people in their inner circles who betrayed them and went against them because they have the slave mindset. It's like, oh, we don't want to ruffle too many feathers. We just want to stay right here. We don't want to ask for too much, right? And so that's what it is with the whole, civil rights movement. We still have it, like you said, we still haven't gotten 40 acres and a mule. How many years later? We still get a couple lines in the textbook. How many years later?
Right? Well, you bring up the civil rights movement, and what group has benefited the most from civil rights? It's not Black people. I'm just saying white women have benefited the most from affirmative action civil rights more than any other group.
Right. But that's another example of our mission getting derailed.
But
right?
But are we responsible for letting that message getting derailed, or is it the system? Like, go ahead, Jeff.
So I'm going to say that, because of the way the system was built, it makes it difficult in a lot of ways for certain groups to prosper. At the end of the day, we are responsible for ourselves. And so we as a community, me as a father, I have the duty to give my children the tools they need to be successful, including giving them the information so they can get to know who they are and where they've come from. I cannot rely on the system to give them that, because the truth is, we know already the system is broken in many ways. And number two, the system may give them false information. I had my oldest son when he was in, he's 11 now, when he was 10 last year, the last school year, and everything blew up with George Floyd and what we saw. His teacher, who is a white female, she tried to jump in and do her part. And so she was teaching the class about Juneteenth. Yep. Now, I applaud her for trying to try something different, and that was out of her comfort zone, that was out of her range, and she tried. However, Juneteenth is very American. Juneteenth is not something that exists here in Canada.
Yeah.
Right? I do applaud her for trying. But what I share that information to say, again, I applaud her for trying. I want to make that very clear. But I share that information because it is my duty as a father to share information to my children. And if I don't know it, then it's my duty to learn it, to give it to my children. Yeah, but, Jeff, I'm busy. Jeff, I got a job. Jeff, I got this going on. I hear you. I understand you. But if you do not give it to your children, then it's another generation who is lost, and another generation who doesn't have the information. So, yeah, we can rely on the system, but we know the system has failed us in so many ways. Give our children, the next generation, ourselves, the information that we need.
Yeah, I like that.
I agree with that, too, because I'm all about, and I remember saying to Louis many years ago about controlling the narrative. And yes. we're not controlling our narrative.
No.
For whatever reason. And I really hear you, Jeff, that if we are counting on our next generation to carry the torch, for lack of better terminology, many of us aren't even equipped to give them the information that they need to carry the torch.
Right.
And there's no shame in not having the information.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's shame in knowing you don't have the information and you're not trying to seek it. You're not trying to seek it.
We play ignorance, right? Like, yes. You don't want to put yourself out there to find the information. It's like somebody who says, well, I don't know anything about the stock market, or I don't know anything about history, Black history. Well, you have the biggest library in the world. It's called Google, right? Like
Yes.
you can find out information. So I completely agree with what you're saying. It's like the onus is on you to find out this information to pass on to the next generation.
I think it's on not only on to get it in us, but we have to make it through us too. We just can't keep it amongst ourselves, because knowledge is everyone says knowledge is power, but to me, applied knowledge is power.
Yes, absolutely it is. Absolutely. And the knowledge really is a fingertip away. As you talked about, Danny, Google, I'm proud to say that I attend a university. And this university, I call it YouTube University, right? I attend it every day, right? Yeah. There's so much great information. And a lot of people attend it as well, but they're looking at cat videos. You know what I'm saying? And you can look at cat videos all day. However, there's so much information there at your fingertips. If you pick up a book, I got to tell you, so I've shared this before, one of the programs that I'm running now through my nonprofit, we're trying to collect books written by Black authors or that are about Black people to donate them to one of the jail systems right here in Ontario. And I'm getting all these gems that are coming in. I'm looking at these books, and the whole purpose is for me to take these books and to give them away. But I'm second guessing myself. I'm looking at these books and I'm like, there's some gems in this book, right? Ooh, there's some gems in this. And I want to read them before I give them off because I see the value that's within them. And again, we can read books. We can go online. The information is there that we are able to learn. If you have children, if you have another generation that you are responsible for, we have to teach them to love themselves. We have to teach them who they are and where they've come from. And I think that's a part of the problem. You talked about Louis and the fight that he has with the zero gun violence movement. We see so much crime that's happening in a lot of the major cities across North America. A lot of this is happening with our young Black boys because they don't know who they are. They don't understand and recognize where they've come from and the value of the ancestors who have come before them. And when we're able to teach them this, we can teach them love. We can teach them self-value. We can teach them self-worth. And that's going to help to raise who they are. And they learn that through reading. They learn it through online tutorials, through YouTube. There's a ton of ways they can learn it, but we have to teach them that information.
Just to follow up, first comment we have here from Serena. Thank you, as always, Serena, being a great supporter. Agreed with Jeff. We have to teach our children, just like our school district down here, where my son goes to school, was talking about adopting the 1619 curriculum for this school year. Haven't seen it yet. We can't wait for other entities to teach our babies.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And I think this is where community centers and community services can step in, right? Where we know that the schools are trying to take us back in time when it comes to educating our children. So part of it is obviously, like Jeff was saying, responsibility as parents, but then you have all of these community centers, you have churches, you have all of these people and these organizations that are there that could be helping to support our communities with after school programs and reading programs and bringing in real life authors to speak to the young people. And so I think that's something that could be done now, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've had our opening comments and time is flying by already, but that means it's going to be an epic conversation. So we're going to have some conversation about different areas in regards to Black history, past, present, and future, but especially during what's going on right now. We wanted to talk about that wonderful subject about Blacks and economics. And Jesus, we could spend a whole conversation on that, but let me just give a little interesting story. Here in Toronto, there is a very well-known philanthropist. I will not give his name, but if you're around in Toronto a little bit, you'll know who it is. And I remember last year, it was about a year and a half ago, I had a conversation with him, and I can't get too deep into it, but he just basically said, I go, so-and-so, what happened to this money you contributed to this organization? And he said, blank. I don't know what it is with Blacks and money and organizations. I just went, okay. So, and he's been around a lot longer than I have. We have to get our economics right. Like, they ain't in a good place.
Well, Dr. Claude Anderson laid it out with Powernomics. That's one book, and that's one book that recently one of my friends, he was looking for the book, and it took him a while to find it because it's hard to find even online. But Dr. Claude Anderson lays out the whole about 6 or 7 different things that we need to do as Black people, and economics is a big part of it. Black-owned businesses and investing and putting our money back into ourselves and our own communities. And it's that comment that you just talked about. All 3 of us have had this conversation before.
Oh yeah.
About, I don't want to live in an organization. I don't want to live in a community with other Black people. I don't want to do business with other Black people. And so we have this sort of negativity amongst each other where we don't want to do business with other Black people. And maybe you have had one bad instance, but how many times have you gone back to white-owned organizations after they don't even want you there at times and continue to spend your money in these organizations? So we have to stop that mindset of doing business with Black people means unprofessionalism, people stealing money. That's not true. That's not true for all Black organizations. And we have to stop that, because how many times have you gotten ripped off from white organizations? Let's count, right? Let's count. I'm sure we've all had some experiences, right? Well, yeah, we'll go right back to the same store. We'll go right back to the same person. We'll invest with the same organization. So we need to stop that narrative because it's not true.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I agree with Danny. I think I'm averaging now, I got kids, so we go to McDonald's. I'm averaging, I think, every 3rd time we go to McDonald's, the order is screwed up. I think I'm averaging that now, right? Like, you ask for one thing, you're getting another. Like, it's always screwed up. No ice, you get ice. Like, it's always messed up. And guess what? People continue to go to McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you're absolutely right, Danny. People are going to mess up in stores and, businesses and stuff, and that's fine. And if you choose not to go back to that specific one, that specific location, that's fine. But there's a lot of people who are out there really trying to put that stuff together. And if we continue to close our doors on them and say, oh, all Black people are this, then we're not helping out anybody. You're always going to find what you're looking for. So if you're looking for, if you have it in your mind that, every Black restaurant, does this, then you're going to find it. Again, even if it's every 4th or 5th one, you're going to find it and say, see, I told you, right? But if you go in there saying, yeah, people sometimes mess up, but I'm still going to support. I'm still going to, okay, I'm not going to go there anymore because they really messed it up, but I'm going to go next door and still support, right? And I think that's the mentality that we have to have. There's a lot of people who are out there trying. I know I've messed up in a lot of different ways and different things, and I'm so glad that people have forgiven me, right? And so I'm asking for people to do the same. Like, if there's restaurants that have screwed up or businesses that have screwed up, give them a second chance. And if not, don't turn down the whole group of people. Turn down that one store and go next door and help somebody else out.
I think when we talk about this, I think the word trust is a big component here. And, we're talking Black History Month, but I think about it 365 days a year. Do we really trust each other? Like, if you can't trust somebody or give them the opportunity to earn your trust, you ain't going to do business with them.
Right. People buy from people they know, like, and trust, right?
Yep. Yes.
And you're right. If you don't trust that place of business or that person, you're not going to do business with them. But the other thing is, we can't use organizations for our own piggy bank and for our own branding.
You're going there. We
can't, right? So we do have some individuals who get in positions where they are in Black organizations and they use it as their own piggy bank. They use it as their own way to promote themselves instead of the people that they're supposed to serve. That does happen, but that happens in all types of organizations. How many CEOs of major banks and major corporations have been robbing them 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, yet you still go back to that bank. You still go back and buy something. I mean, there's so many, right? So many CEOs are like, all right, well, 1 million for you, 5 million for me, right? And yet we hear about it, and the person gets a slap on the wrist, and we continue to shop at these big organizations or do business with these big banks or whatnot. So I agree with what both of you are saying for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was having a conversation with a young gentleman this afternoon. He's a member of a not-for-profit that's been around for 40 years.
Okay.
40 years. And
A long
so
time.
and I was asking him some questions, and I said, um, what would you rate your organization on a scale of 1 to 10 as a solid organization? He gave me 5.
Wow.
This is an organization, well-known organization in the GTA, and 5. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I say, "Are the finances in order?" Sort of. I'm going, "How does your organization exist?" Donation. I go, "My gosh!" I said, "You got a tax number. You guys should be making that happen." He goes, "Well, the leadership at the top, we're putting things together to try to get rid of them." And I'm just going, "Oh my goodness!" And the sad thing is, that's common. Sorry to say that. That's common. We've really got, and we as a people, we got to get our crap together, and we got to realize that we live in a capitalistic society. We do not live in a democracy, in my opinion. We live in a capitalist. It's a capitalist society.
No, you're right. But I think the other angle too that we have to consider is we're out here buying $350 Jordans, but we have no investments in stock markets and other things that are going to give us a return on our money, right? We're out here standing in line to go to the Gucci store, right? Buying something from Gucci. Meanwhile, that you could be investing that money in rental properties or taking $25 a month and investing it in the stocks or whatever. And so as individuals, we have to learn how to make our money work for us instead of always going out here and shopping outside of our means and buying things that we can't afford, right? Like literally standing outside of a Gucci store to buy some Gucci, and then you come home and you have no investments, nothing that's making you money. It's crazy, right?
Jeff, I know, and if I correct me if I'm wrong, I know this is something you really are into a little bit, the money and the stocks. And how much effort does it take for one to get at least a somewhat financial stability? Because I had a gentleman on one of my platforms a few months ago, black gentleman. And I said, though, when you're offering what you are to people, which a lot of it is sense, like at least have a will, at least have life insurance. And I say, what's what a response do you get from our people? Well, Vibe, it's the old 80-20 rule. 20% of the people get it, 80% don't get it.
Yeah. It really comes down to you putting the time and effort into learning it. If it's important to you, and it should be, but if it's important to you, then you'll learn it. And so, yeah, you spoke about, the stock market. For years, I wanted to jump in and kind of learn about it and, understand stocks. And it just seemed like to me that it was over my head. It seemed like this old white rich guy thing. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like I couldn't handle it. And so eventually I was like, no, you got to step into this thing. And it was somebody who was in it for a while. And I kind of mentioned it. He's like, yeah, I've been doing it. And he helped me out. He kind of broke it down for me. And then I took it on myself. So again, you have to be able to learn, wanting to learn. I read books, didn't understand, but I went through and read it over again. I took a course, this crash course. It was all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I came to understand and learn that the public library and probably most major public libraries, they actually offer free courses, online courses that you can learn about the stock market. And I've been sharing that as well for people who want resources. And so I was able to learn. I jumped in, and the more I learned is the more I wanted to learn. And I started to research into companies. So initially, it took me some time to understand it. But now that I do, I can break it down and share it to people who want to learn it. My children at 11 and 8 years old, they understand a lot of it as well. And now I don't put a whole lot of time in because I'm looking at investing in the long term. So having my money grow over time as opposed to buying today and selling tomorrow. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time doing it. So it doesn't take up a lot of time. Initially, to learn anything, you want to be able to put that time in. But I guarantee you later on, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. So I encourage people to do that. As Danny said, rather than going out there and buying those Jordans, how about buying stock in Nike and have that make the money for you? You don't look all cute with those Jordans on your feet, but later on when that stock turns into something, it starts to grow. You can take that money, buy your Jordans if you choose, and then buy a lot of other things as well because you invested that money.
Well, Serena Wills is saying here, say that, Danny. Folks buying Louis Vuitton, but renting, having no savings or investments, no college fund for their children. Don't get me started.
Yeah, that's real.
Serena,
that is real
right there. You said a mouthful. And the other thing too, that you can set up direct deposits that directly. So you, even if you don't know anything, you can just set it up so it automatically goes into some type of investment. So you don't even really have to know that much in order for your money to automatically be saved in some type of investment that's going to make you money, right? And then, as you said, Jeff, along the way, you can continue to learn and grow and kind of get more sophisticated with your investments.
Yes.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, I think we just got another coming in. No, I think we got that one. It's all right. Don't get me started. All right. So let's go to another conversation topic that's passion with all of us. Blacks' education of themselves and education of others.
Yeah, that's a big topic right there. And really, I kind of spoke about that already in terms of the opportunities that we all have. We have the opportunity to go online and to learn, to read, to listen to a YouTube video, to dig deeper. A lot of major universities are offering courses online that you don't have to leave your home. A lot of people who are skilled in certain areas that you might be interested are offering courses that you don't need to learn. You don't need to leave your home. People like my man Danny, he has his online courses. I got a couple online courses. There are a lot of people outside of us who have amazing courses that you can learn that can get you in the area that you're trying to get into. And so, yes, it's important that we learn to educate ourselves. We don't need to rely on the big institution, because the truth is, and I can speak specifically for within Ontario because that's where I live, that, since the 90s, if not since the 80s, the 1980s, there's a study that came out that showed that Black children were dropping out at a rate of 40% every year. That was in the 80s, and it hasn't stopped. We're now in 2021, and the rate hasn't changed. And so there are people who are consistently being let down by the school system. And so, again, do we wait for the big machine to say, I'm going to make change? Do we wait for the next prime minister to say, no, that number's too high, let's jump in and do something? Or the education minister? Or do we take it on ourselves to say, okay, what can I do to help to make change within my own family, within myself, within my community? We don't need to necessarily rely on these big institutions or these big colleges or universities to make the change. We can make the change by getting the education we need for ourselves. And again, you don't always have to have that big piece of paper. Sure, if you want to be a surgeon, then yeah, you need to have that paper. I'm not trying to, have an operation and you don't have the skills. However, if you're looking to invest into stocks, if you're looking to, be a real estate agent, there's a lot of things you're able to do without having to go to those big institutions. So let's stop relying on them to fulfill the dream that we want for ourselves and start chasing the thing that you want.
Anything you want to add, Coach Stone?
Yeah, I think that it's your responsibility to educate yourself. Like, Dr. Vibe just talked about a good friend of ours, Louis, who's, definitely not super young, but he's young at heart. But he's a lifelong learner. But here's the other thing. We have to remember how education started. Education started basically based on apprenticeship. That means there was a bricklayer who showed somebody else how to be a bricklayer, and he showed him or her how to be a bricklayer, with the whole purpose of that person being better than they were. So painters, bricklayers, stonemasons, that's how education started. It was the Industrial Revolution that changed everything and made people, that's when universities and schools came along in a more formal approach. What all of that to say is, if we know that education is based on somebody showing somebody else something, and we have access to information, meaning books, videos, YouTube, Google, then we can learn on our own. We can do self-directed. You can sign up for online courses or classes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to an academic institution, right? I always ask people, like, would you rather go to Harvard, right, Would you rather go to Harvard for 4 years or spend 1 year being mentored by, Warren Buffett, where he's actually mentoring you, right? If you want to be mentored by Warren Buffett, then you know that that's education, because he's going to give you knowledge and information that you can use in your life. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to say that there are so many ways to educate ourselves. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be sitting in a classroom learning.
Fully agree with that. I think that there's so many ways to get educated. I also want to add that many of us Blacks, we have to be curious. We can't afford to be lazy. You have to be curious. Ask the questions why. How has that got done? Because if you're lazy these days, life is going to pass you by. Sorry to say it. It's moving so fast now. We're in a digital age, plus we're in a pandemic age, so there's even more reliance on the digital factor. Please, if you don't know how to do it, folks, ask people, because there's people all around you, they're doing it.
You know what else I think this goes to, though? This actually goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the way that the school systems educate people, and our history starts at slavery. See, that's part of the reason why we don't want to learn, right? Like, and if you learn your history, right? And this is, you ever see someone who learns their family tree? When you go back and you learn, you're like, my great grandfather was a whatever. They get excited, right? Yes. And that actually turns on a switch for them to want to learn other things. And so I just saw this little special on YouTube, and it was all about Dave Chappelle's grandfather. And Dave Chappelle's grandfather was like this really business guru who owned his own businesses and started all these different things.
Nice.
And then his father. And so it was passed on through generations. And so when you look at Dave Chappelle's comedy, it's a reflection of his ancestors, right? And so I think a lot of us, if we were to educate ourselves on where we really come from, that would open the door to like curiosity and exploring other things and so much and so on. But we don't do that because our history has told us that, oh, you were just a slave. And so I think that's part of it myself. I think that there's a correlation between that and our lack of really putting ourselves out there to learn.
Anything you want to add, Jeff?
No, that's good. Danny summed it up, man. I think we all have to take the responsibility to educate ourselves. Again, as I said earlier, we can't rely on the big box, the big machine to give us all the tools. They're giving us what they believe is important, and what they believe is important is not always important to us. And so it's important for us to find the information. It's available. Go out and seek it. It's there.
Yeah. And I know that some people are going to say, well, I'm busy with this. I got a family race. I get it. We all full get it. But just start in little increments. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a massive thing, like 5 minutes a day. Just make it consistent, because you'll find out the more you know, the more you need to know.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to touch on.
Go ahead, Danny.
I want to touch on the other piece about educating others as well.
Yes.
We all have knowledge and information that people need. You have a story, you have skills, you have knowledge, experiences that people need. And sometimes we devalue that, right? And I think that this also opens the door to you educating yourself, because the minute that you tell your story to somebody and they resonate with it, the minute that you teach somebody something, that opens the doorway to you wanting to learn more, right? And so I think there's a huge value in you just sharing posts on your Instagram about something that you're knowledgeable about, or something you're passionate about, or something you're curious about. Because once you start to see people respond to that, what do? You're like, oh, okay, well, people are responding to my posts about financial literacy, so you go and learn more. Or people are responding to my thing about becoming entrepreneurs, so I go and learn more. And so I think teaching other people is so essential, because it helps you to learn and expand your mindset and your capabilities of what you know.
Right. And I don't know if I was in a space the other day where Les Brown was speaking, and he said it's really powerful. And I think Danny had heard me say this before. He said, learn, earn, and teach. And I thought that was so powerful,
Right.
Learn, earn, and teach. So learn it, yes, make money from it, but teach others.
Yeah.
Have that succession. Have a game plan to pay it forward after you learn and make money from it. Because if you keep it in yourself, that's not African heritage.
That's right.
Bottom line, we're a communal people.
Right.
Let's hit our next conversation piece, one that's been hot, well, especially in the last year and a half. But the question is, what's it right now? The state of Black activism, and what role can you play? I'll jump in on this one first. I don't know, Black activism. It seems that it's at its height when someone gets killed. Sorry to say that, folks, but I'm hearing this. I don't hear as loud as it was a few months ago. I'm not hearing companies on the anti-racism banner as much as, and I'm just saying, am I crazy to think that the sun is setting on the anti-Black racism front for big organizations? I may be crazy, but I'm just getting this feeling that I'm not hearing it as much anymore. Like it had its window, and it's like, okay, let's wait for the next murder.
Yeah, I think when you look at activism back in the 60s, the first thing that we have to acknowledge is that it was led by churches. The Black churches were heavily involved in the whole civil rights movement and activism and so on. And when you look at the church involvement now, specifically Black churches, and some of the biggest leaders, some of the biggest ones, they're quiet. They're afraid. They're afraid to mess with their own pocketbook. They're afraid to be criticized by maybe, big conglomerates that are donating to their church or them personally. Like when you look, you don't see that presence like you used to see back in the 60s with the churches. And I'm talking about massive church leaders who have 20,000, 25,000, people, congregations, who might say a few words, but they're not out in the streets marching, right? They might say a word here and there, but they're not out here every day the way Malcolm and Martin and Muhammad Ali were, right? So, that's one of my kind of opinions about that.
Jeff?
Yeah, you're asking what role can we play? I remember a few years back, I believe it was during the circumstance of Trayvon Martin, an acquaintance of mine who was a police officer, he said, I think what the United States needs is another Martin Luther King. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, they need another leader to kind of take control of things. And I was like, okay. And I said, what about you? And he's like, oh no, me. Well, no, me. And, he said, stumbling on his words. And I asked him that, I questioned him about that, because we like to sit back and think that we need to have the next leader. We need to have the next Martin Luther King, the next Mandela. But the truth is that all of us have the ability to do something. And so when you ask what role can we play, I'm not expecting you, unless you have it within you, I'm not expecting you to lead the next movement of civil rights. I'm not expecting that from you. But what you can do is use the skills and the ability that you might have, is use the contacts that you might have to make change. Maybe you can reach out to your local police station and say, hey, we're looking to have a conversation between our community and the police. Can we facilitate that? Maybe you can start a petition. Maybe you can help to raise money to help a cause. But what I'm looking for is for all of us to find our special power, whatever that might be for you, and use that to get involved. I'm not expecting, if you are a teacher, I'm not expecting you out on the front line holding a picket sign, because your skills can be better suited in the school system, helping to change the minds of other teachers who are still on this narrow old school path. If you are a doctor, I don't want to see you on the picket lines, because our medical system needs to be changed. It's very clear, and studies have shown that Black women who are going in, who are pregnant, or who are going in to have a baby, have died. I don't know the exact number, but have died at higher rates than white women, because they talk about the fact that the doctors and the nurses who are sitting there have less compassion. And so my point is that we all have a superpower, whether it be the skills, the abilities that you have. And I think it's important that we find a way to use that to help to push the agenda forward, to make things more inclusive for everybody. So when we're talking about how we can play our roles and what role can we play, we all have the ability to do so. You don't always have to be on the front line. Some people, that's for them. Go ahead. But use your skills, use your abilities to make change, because again, if you have these skills and abilities already, you might as well use them to help to make this world a better place.
Agreed. And I just want to clarify what I said in the front end. I'm hoping that corporate world keep to their promises. I'm hoping, but it's our responsibility to make sure that they're accountable.
Yes.
Right. We have to make sure that they're accountable, because things can change on a dime. We have to make sure that we're brave enough to say, you're not doing what you promised, or you're not having the accountability. You said you're going to do this. Hold them to it. We got to hold it to them, because if we don't hold it to them, they're not going to think we're serious.
That's true.
Especially when it's no longer on the front lines, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the headlines of the news. It's no longer cool. It's no longer trending, right? Black people are still Black people, whether it's trending or not, right? There's people who are fighting for equality, whether they're trending or not. And so at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, as you talked about, Vibe. You know, if you're a company and you made promises about, you know, certain things, making things fair for your employees, then stick to those promises. If you are somebody who saw the mess that happened over 2020 and you want to see things better within the world, within the community, then stick to your promises. Let's go further than posting a black box on social media. Let's get involved and use our part. And again, as I talked about earlier, use your skills to help to make that change.
Coach Stone, anything you want to add on this?
Yeah, I just think that like you can't look to it's kind of like when you're stuck in your job, right? Like you're at a job you don't want to be at. You're stressed, you're frustrated, you want out. But then you wake up every day, go to that job, anxious, frustrated. Nothing's going to change unless you change it, right? And it's kind of like it's the same thing. No one's going to come and say, here's your dream job. You got to actually get out there and put the work in. And I think what happens with a lot of us when it comes to this is like, oh, we look to athletes, we look to rappers, we look to all of these other people to be out there. When Jeff just said it, what can you do, right? When I hear people constantly complaining about the same situation over and over again, I only ask them this one question: what are you going to do to change your situation? That's the only thing you can ask yourself. What am I going to do to change the situation? And so I think when it comes to Black activism, what can you do? Forget what other people can do. What can you do that's within the realm of your skill set, your interest, your knowledge, your skills, and your experience? Because if everybody just does one little part, one little thing, we touch so many different areas, right? And that's how we kind of make the shift in society. Not sitting back saying, okay, we'll just wait till LeBron does something, right? Or wait till the next, unfortunate murder of a unarmed Black person before we step up again, right?
Yeah. What do each one of you feel your vision of your role in the future when it comes to Black activism? Like for myself, I'm doing it through this, but I want to get deeper and wider in regards to my activism, whether it's face-to-face or digital. So whenever I get the opportunity, I want to make sure that people know that I'm B1, I'm Black, and that any opportunity, because we never know what time holds for us in the future. What visions do you feel each one of you have in regards to are increasing your activism if and when you're ready to do that?
So, Vibe, but what do you mean by expanding and all that? What do you mean by that?
So I'm saying, do you see any opportunities in the future?
No, but I mean for you, what does it look like for you? Yeah.
Oh, for me, I have to catch up to you two, and I want to get on the speaking circuit. I'm joking sort of with, but no, I want to get out there physically and put this bald head into more people's faces and eyes out there, because there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay.
And I want to get and I always like to go in places where people think, why were you there? Yeah, because I'm supposed to be there. Right. I want to be in those places where people don't think that I'm supposed to be. I want to be speaking about Black manhood in front of 500 women. Right. That's another form of activism, but I want to be in more spaces, because a lot of times when we go into those spaces, they have preconceived ideas. And if I can tell them, you know what, it ain't always what you think, and I'm proving it to you.
Okay. What about you, Jeff?
Man, I'm just going to continue to keep pushing the way I've been pushing. It's important for me to get in front of students, to speak to them, to show them that there are great things that's waiting for them if they choose to see that. They can see the negativity. They can see the violence that might be in their neighborhoods. They can see the drugs if that's the neighborhood they come from. They can see the negativity in their family, but they also can choose to see their own greatness. And if I'm able to get to some of these kids, some of these students at a younger age, I could show them, that they have so much potential prior to them becoming that adult, adults we can be set in our ways. I also want to continue to working with adults and working with corporations and bring that diversity inclusion type talk and conversation to open the eyes of people who didn't know that racism still existed. A lot of people really don't know. I know it sounds funny to even say that, but seriously, a lot of people just don't know. And so, I want to continue the conversation with some of these corporations and letting them know and reminding people that not everybody feels like they're treated the same, and not everybody is treated the same. So I'm going to continue with the path I'm walking on, and, God willing, doors continue to open, and I continue to try to change lives and minds. And, I believe I'm doing my part by doing that. Again, not everybody needs to be on the front line.
That's right.
And a lot of people have been fighting in different ways way before it was popular, way before it was cool. They've been in the trenches. One of the things that people like to say is, everybody gets up in arms when a police officer kills a black man, but when, two young men are killing each other, nobody's talking. And I can tell you, I know so many people out there, so many organizations. You talked about Zero Gun Violence Movement. People are out there who are fighting against these young men who have guns in their hand, who are fighting against these young men who are selling drugs. There's people out there who are fighting this every single day, but it's not making headline news. It's not trending. And so you don't see it, and so you believe it's not happening. But I promise you, people are out there who are fighting for our children to see change. And again, I'm doing my part. I know you guys are doing yours, and I'm hoping that if you are listening, you find a way to do it as well.
I would just like to add that if anyone is listening here and they don't know what role they could play, but you want to play a role, contact any of us and we'll come up with something for you. Don't worry, because time never lost a fight, because there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
So true. You don't have to I'm speaking that one day that one of us or each one of us corporations ask us to say, hey, we need to change. We need you to help us make this change. Instead of just doing a one-off appearance, we need you to come in and turn it in the direction it should be going, not a stopgap measure. We're looking at permanency. We're looking at legacy piece to say a long-term thing. It's Jeff does a lot of sharing. Danny does a lot of sharing. I do it for organizations. It's nice, but we want, okay, if I come back in a week, has there been any action from it? Oh, that was a really nice thing. Love you for an hour and a half. Done.
Right. No, I agree. I agree with that. For me, I just want to continue all the work that I'm doing. I want to continue to work with young people. I want to continue to work with adults. I definitely think entrepreneurship is the gateway to Black economics and education, and so many things when you control your own destiny when it comes to owning your own business and investing. And so I want to continue to do that work for sure. I want to continue to do work with, Black men that have been incarcerated, so that they can come out, being productive members of society. And again, with organizations, I've come from that background working in the financial industry and nonprofit and education. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And we need to force them to be committed to doing the work when it comes to diversity and inclusion and promotions and looking at their board members and their executive teams and all of that kind of stuff. I just want to continue doing all the same work that I'm doing, getting on bigger platforms to reach more people.
Exactly. Serena Wills, our number one fan. Exactly, Jeff. I was just listening to a Facebook Live last week through a chapter of my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and it was all about gun reform. Had police on there, organizations, activists, but like you said, Jeff, you won't hear about this on the news.
Right.
But they're on the ground working to get more guns off the street
Every single day, tirelessly.
Right.
Tirelessly. I poke fun at Louis, but Louis has been to a lot of funerals. He's been to a lot of funerals of young men. Just before I came on here, the news was on, and there was another young man who was taken. And, it's happening all the time. And so, yeah, there are people out there who are fighting. And again, it's not on the news. It's not, in the sense of like, it's not trending and, like it does when a police officer kills somebody. But people are out there who are fighting, and it's necessary and needed.
I love how you said, Jeff, about this whole trending piece. I think we've got to stop getting off the trending bandwagon, because there's so much that's underneath the trending bandwagon that really needs to be examined, right?
Yes.
And nothing against the Trayvon Martins, the George Floyds, all of that. But there's still a heck of a lot of, like, how many people, and we live in Canada, but on our Toronto streets, there's stuff that goes on that we don't hear about.
Right. Well, part of that responsibility is ours. We can't wait for the mainstream media to that's why I like Roland Martin. Roland Martin from CNN. He's like, he started his own YouTube channel that gets, 8 million unique views or something like that. And he's just like, I control it. And so that's one person. What if 10 people said this? And we started showing stories of people doing amazing work, like that single Black mother who has 2 kids and adopted 6 more, right? That the guy who can barely make ends meet but is helping out in his community. Like, we can't wait for other people to tell us our story, because we already know what mainstream media is about. It's not for us. Mainstream media is designed to make us look like criminals and make us look bad. So we need to control that. We have to put up the messages that we want people to see. Social media, Zero Gun Violence Movement has all these different platforms that we put our own messages out on. And we do have contacts with mainstream media, but they'll take a big story and give you a minute and a half to your commentary on the shooting in a minute and a half, right? Like, that's nothing. So we have to control the narrative when it comes to that. So if that's somebody's forte, like we were saying, what role can you play? That's your thing. That's an avenue for you to pursue.
Yeah, there's room for everybody, right?
Absolutely there is.
There's room for anybody. I think we've covered it, but any other extra comments about what can you do to be an ally? More need to be winning. Any other comments we want to put out there before we call it a conversation? Anything additional?
So I'll go further and say again, just educate yourself. If you're trying to be an ally, if you're trying to be a part of the cause, educate yourself. And we don't want you to be an ally just some of the time. My cousin is a teacher, and he has the same complexion as me. And just the other day, he was having a conversation with a student, and it wasn't going very well. The student was really upset. And the student turned around and called him the N-word.
What?
Now, yep. Now, to what I understood, the student did not apologize. The parent was aware of what the student said. The parent did not apologize. But come February 1st, the first day of Black History Month, what is this kid wearing to school? A Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Because now it's cool. Now it's trending. Now it's okay to be an ally. We need you to be an ally through and through, when it's cool and when it's not cool. During Black History Month and when Black History Month is gone. We need you to be an ally and be there for the people that you claim that you want to be there for. And so that's what we need. That's what we're looking for. If you're going to be an ally, you do it through and through, not just when it's cool, but at all times, at all costs, even when no one's paying attention and nobody's watching. You have to be the ally.
Anything you want to add, Danny?
Yeah, and I think if you want to be an ally, ask questions. Stop making assumptions because you have a Black friend or somebody who don't make assumptions. Ask questions. Educate yourself, like Jeff was saying. and understand when it's time to walk side by side and when it's time for you to step back. Because I think sometimes when it comes to allies, they're out here advocating for us, and they're not even really aware of the real issues. And two, there's a time when you should just step aside and allow, a Black person to step up and stop speaking for people. So I think to be an ally, it's about educating yourself. It's about being curious, asking questions, and understanding that there's a point in time where you just have to be quiet and step aside. And then there's other times when you have to be vocal and step up in the most difficult times, not when it's easy, not during Black History Month, but when it's difficult.
Well put. Well, I think we've come to an end of a conversation. And as always, we like to close. What's a takeaway from each one of us tonight? Who wants to start?
So I'll say that, again, we're in February and we're celebrating Black History Month, but understand that Black History Month is not a time just for Black people to celebrate. It's a time for all of us to take the opportunity to learn about the great contributions that Black people have made in our society and in the world. And again, the same thing when we're looking at Asian Heritage Month or Indigenous Month or whatever it might be. Take the opportunity to learn about someone else, learn something new, find disconfirming evidence. Disconfirming evidence is information that you're learning that goes against the negative and the stereotypes that you might have heard. That you might have heard dad say, or you might have heard mom say, or that have come from your circle. Find disconfirming evidence, information that goes against what they say. So when they say that a certain group of people are always in jail or always, drug dealers, then find people who are doing great things from that community and show that individual that they are absolutely wrong. It takes all of us to be a part of the change. It takes you to be the ally. It takes you to be someone who wants to step up for the people who don't get a chance to step up for themselves. Be a part of the change, and that's how we're going to make this world better.
Coach Stone?
I agree. Stop waiting for a hero. Stop waiting for someone to come and save you and save yourself. If you're going down in a raft, you're going to save yourself. And I think this is an opportunity for all of us, during Black History Month to do exactly what Jeff was saying. Educate yourself. Find out interesting facts that you didn't know, and also find out how you can use your voice to step up and be an advocate and an ally or give people information, right? We have to stop waiting for other people and start being the change that we want to see in the world, right? We all have information. We all have knowledge. We all have stories and experiences that if we chose to share them, I'm sure, I promise you, can change lives. And so I think that's something that we should take away from this month.
For me, a takeaway is that if you are Black, find out about your own history. I've started to do that passionately the last number of years, and the things that I've found out have blown me away. Finding out that I'm a distant relative of Colin Powell. I didn't know. If I didn't ask and didn't delve into my history, I wouldn't know. Knowing that, delving into my history, that Denham Jolly, one of the most, going to be receiving an Order of Canada. My dad and him known each other for 70 years. That, history's not on the TV, folks. It's right in your own family. So that's the takeaway I have here, that I need to do more. And it doesn't have to be huge things, but just little steps. And I don't have to be going all around the world. It starts at home. I got to find out the history of the people that are around me, find out their history. Right. And if you're not Black, my take home for you is ask about our history. Turn off the TV, turn off the internet. If you know someone who looks like us and you treat them with manners and respect, ask them about their history. You will be blown away. But it takes an investment and a commitment. It's not out of convenience. Black History Month right now for me is a convenience. I don't want convenience. I want commitment. I want by us to start with, because we can't expect others to be committed if we don't show a committed part of it all year round, not just for 1 month. Because everyone who is outside, they're used to that 1 month thing. We have to push it 365. Be one, Black One 365.
It's a compromise. That's what it is.
Love it.
Black history is a compromise.
There you go. There you go. Well, gentlemen, as usual, you rocked it out of the park. As always, thank you so much for your time. Jeff, how can people get a hold of you? Best place?
Google me, jeffadmartin.com is my website. You can Google me, Jeff A.D. Martin, and I'm super excited to speak to anyone. If you have if you have something you want to ask, if you want to go deeper in conversation, if you have something going on and I can perhaps even help you with it, then I'm open for that. So hit me up. I'm available.
Thank you so much. Coach Stone.
You already know I am Danny Stone everywhere, all the time. My website, every single social media you can think of, I am Danny Stone. Definitely hit me up. I'm always open to having conversations. And, I love to hear from people, hear their story, their journey. If you have questions about, like Jeff was saying, anything about, Black history or being Black or whatever, send me a message. We can have a conversation.
Wonderful. And myself, you can hit me up at thedrvibeshow.com. All things Dr. Vibe are there. You can contact me. You can listen to my conversations, watch my conversations, ask me questions. It's all there. As a young lady told me a long time ago, Dr. Vibe, Danny, and Jeff are Google-licious. So we're good to go. I'd like to thank Serena Wills and a whole pile of people that watched us tonight. And if you like what you see, please reach out to us. We're here to serve, because I was told a long time ago, the biggest leaders are the biggest servants. I'm Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020 Podcasting News and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And once a month, I host the only online show for dads and fathers in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. I'd like to thank everyone again for taking the time to listen. And Black History Month is every day, not a month, it's every day. As always, I'd like to say, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect, and especially give yourself grace. God bless, peace to you all, keep the faith, and walk good. Good night, everybody.